Here this year now, we're looking at cuts. And I think it's more important to look at things that would directly affect the students, especially if some of these professional development opportunities are available in Seattle or here in Washington State instead of Las Vegas, San Diego, Utah, Florida, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Heidi Dawson.
Alright. You have a piece of paper in front of you that it's from the Mineral School Districts, but I want to put this in front of you guys. I brought this up at our mental health awareness meeting tonight. This was actually voted in tonight with the Monroe School District. It's basically declaring the second week in November Kindness Week. World Kindness Day is November 13th, so they're doing a full week of kindness, and it's just, you can make this big or small. I mean, from little tiny acts of kindness to anything big, and you can go from school to school, however you want to put it out there or design it yourself. But I know the Monroe School District did this. The City of Monroe, it's on there for a talking point tomorrow. Sam Lowe with the Sonoma County Council is getting on board with this. I'm working with the mayor and the council to possibly get it here in Silton as well. It's just something that we can do as a school district, as a community, as people, to remind people that kindness is a good thing, and with all the bad things that are in our world right now, that anything, even little acts of kindness, can make a big difference. You never know what's going to help somebody out. So I want to put it in front of you so you can see it, and it's kind of growing and getting really big, so I thought you guys might want to be part of it as well.
And what's the date for this Kindness Day?
It's the second week in November, so World Kindness Day is Monday, November 13th.
We wouldn't be able to do a resolution
Yet.
because our next meeting's not till the 13th, but we could just do something.
Still work through it, and then let's do a week of kindness, and then next year have it in place for, I know it's kind of a last minute thing, but I thought I'd put it in front of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you.
Mandy?
Whitney and I are going to speak together.
Okay. Whitney and Mandy.
Whitney and Mandy.
It's on the same topic. So I know that Sean and I came a few weeks ago on November 25th and addressed the board about concerns we had about the soccer program. Well, we're here a month later with the same concerns, no resolve, no definitive answers. We've gone through the chain of command. We've started with the athletic director, principal, vice principal. We met with Dan. Now we want to address the board and ask that this be added to the next agenda meeting, hopefully November 13th, because we would like definitive answers and we feel like sufficient time has surpassed. The coach eval should have been or will be completed by November 29th. That would be 30 days. November 16th would be the assistant coach evaluation. But we feel with as many concerns as we have, and as many parents are concerned about the coaching issues that have gone on, and they are legitimate concerns, we would like answers now as far as if these coaches are coming back next year, if they're going to be allowed to coach again.
Our concern is that there won't be a soccer team next year
Yes.
if they are able to come back. They're an at-will employees. They don't have to be brought back. Any outside coaching has a non-continuing contract with the school. So if they don't have to be brought back per the CBA and the job description by the school district.
And I think that's a big point that we all need to be looking at too, is job descriptions here and coach evaluations, which if we take a deep look from a parent perspective, and I think at our first meeting we had about 16 parents there, the coaches are failing in their job descriptions, they're not meeting their job descriptions, and they're failing in their evaluations. So where do we go from here? We also would like to make sure that you are aware that policy is not being followed here, which is a concern for us as parents. And we want to know that change is going to happen. All of the parents that have been a part of these meetings are hoping and requiring that these coaches are not asked to come back next year.
And then I emailed you guys our follow-up from our meeting with Dan and the HR Crystal. I just want to make sure you guys have the recap from that meeting. Okay.
And then we brought copies just in case. So in order to have it added to the agenda for the 13th, when will we hear back on that, or when will we know if it will be added?
Typically, the agenda's being worked on a week prior to the meeting, so
Okay.
it would be in that week.
And will we get an email for that, or how will we notify?
Yeah, we can certainly do that. The way it works is we give a preliminary agenda to the board on the Wednesday before, and then any changes internally that occur, or questions or additions, go back and forth, and then by Friday, we send out a final, is the way it's, we want it to work, for the following Monday meeting.
Okay, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us on the email chain. Anybody can answer any questions on that chain.
I think that's basically it.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no one else signed up to speak. Did anyone miss the sign-up sheet? Okay. Next up, we have the consent agenda. Are there any questions, comments on the consent agenda as included in our packet?
Nope.
There being no questions, I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as included in our packet.
So moved.
I have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Presentations, committee, and association reports. Anyone here to speak to us from SEA, PSE, ASB, PTA, or Teamsters? Going once, going twice. 7-period day presentation.
So we have with us Dr. Carol O'Keefe, who is retired from the North Shore School District. One of the things that we decided to do at the onset of doing a 7-period day was to analyze. You know, is the results what we think they will be, or are they something different, or what does the data tell us? And so I started working with Carol last year, and we set out some parameters and some questions to answer, and she started about the business of analyzing our credits, how students were performing grade-wise in a 7-period day. And the report you see is one part of a 2-part analysis. There's another part that won't be part of this, but what we also learned is we've got some processes we want to put in place to make sure that there's consistency in how things are being interpreted. But Carol is here to present. Let's make sure that everybody can hear, and she'll go through the PowerPoint, and I'll let you kind of do it however you're going to do it. If you want people to take questions from the board as we're going, or wait till the end. I think when we went with the committee, it was kind of both, because we have a scheduling committee that's working, and there were questions asked throughout. And so Carol, as the deputy superintendent in the North Shore School District, spent considerable time working with secondary schedules and credits and all of the different nuances that go into making that. So she brought to us a view that was not from internal to assess what we're doing from the outside. So I thought it was a fair way to look at it from somebody that spent a lot of her professional work life working on these kinds of issues. So Carol, I'll cut you loose. Let's see if we can get if everybody can hear her.
Okay, hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes?
I think I heard a yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I can hear you.
So Kayla is helping me, I'm not running, see my fingers, the PowerPoint, so Kayla, I think you're logging in, is that right?
Yes, so I'm working remotely, and so
Okay.
if you want to do an intro, I have the first slide pulled up for everybody that's watching YouTube, and the board, it's behind them, so if you
Well, okay, so I see nothing, I see board docs on my screen that's shared.
Okay.
Can you share the document on the TV?
So,
Dave, can I have your help, please?
yes.
Sorry,
So,
if you want to start an explanation, Carol, I'll just work on the back end with Dave really quick.
okey-doke. So, thank you for inviting me. I know at some point we'll get to the PowerPoint. Hi, Dave, my favorite tech person, director, guru of all things. So I'm pretty sure you have the report the 7-period day report. And what we're going to present, I say we, what I'm going to present to you tonight, I hope, is the PowerPoint, and it's a, brief, 10-ish, 15 slides, just trying to take out the, kind of the major kernels of info that came out of the report. So that's what I hope to do. It was a long process, and Dave can tell you at some point if you want to, how many hours we spent on Zoom together, sometimes 3 to 4 hours looking over data. And I pushed Dave to move into a cohort report. So the first reports that Dave shared with me were, we looked at the class of 2017 when students were on a 6-period day, yet had 2 additional credits that they could utilize because they only needed to they only needed to earn 22 credits back in 27 when they graduated in 2017. And then we looked at 2020, kind of did a dive into that to see how students were doing in their 2020 school, at the end of their 2020 school year. And then we went into a really deep dive. Now I've lost all of you and I just see me. So Dave, this is a little crazy. But the 2023 school year, the 2023 graduates, they were our cohort. And what we were able to create was an Excel spreadsheet that looked at them from the time they came in to Sultan School District as 9th graders, or anywhere within their career but ended in 2023. We were able to look at every year they were in, so I could see a student who came in their 10th grade year as a transfer. I could see a student who was in at 9th grade year and then took 10th grade off and did homeschooling, or students who were in there the whole time. So that was the beauty of a cohort view, because we were able to kind of look at a student in their whole career. So am I making sense?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm telling you, I'm kind of on the fly here because all I see is myself.
We almost got
Dave.
it up. We almost got it up. Almost there,
Okay.
Carolyn.
Okay, so I'm gonna start, so I'll just say Dave is a godsend, and he was the most wonderful person to work with, as well as his assistant Julie. And what took us such a long time to get this done was really trying to get very clean data so that I could report to you numbers that I felt confident in, and that Dave could as well through PowerSchool and all the different spreadsheets and tracking systems that both the principal had and the counselors. So it took us almost to the beginning of a brand new school year to be able to get all the data ironed out, and I could see we could see who actually did graduate on time and what it took for them to do that. Okay, so that's my spiel. So how are we doing, Dave? Are we good?
Let's get you to slide 2.
Doesn't say so.
Okay, so let's jump into the purpose. So I think Superintendent Chaplick talked about the purpose. Really, you wanted to see, after kind of been in the system for a while, how effective was your 7-period day schedule? Was it effective? Did it help and support kids, I would say, in meeting the new 24 credit grad requirement? But in order to do that, like I say, I wanted to go back and I wanted to see, so what happened to students when they only had to earn 22 credits, but they had a 6-period day? And then I also wanted to see what students, how was that class, that cohort class, how are they keeping on track? Because I know that's one of the things that you do as a school district and the state requires is looking at a ninth grader and from the ninth grade year on, knowing how kids are keeping on track for graduation. And so remember, I'm looking at credits. I'm thinking about, but I'm really not looking at the SBAC, the high school and beyond plan, and any of those other pieces that students have to do in order to be on track for graduation. So this is just a pure credit look. So we looked at the number of credits taken, we looked at the number of credit retrieval courses that students took, we looked at the number of students graduating, and the number of students who really depended on that 7-period day. So, I'm through with slide 3. How are you guys doing?
We're
I'm moving
almost
to-
there. We're on 4 now.
I moved to 3, so, towards somewhere in the middle of this study, and this is like, you got a great, crazy website. Anyway, 2 other questions came about. One was, well, are there other schools that are using 7-period day? Because one of the things that, folks wonder, are we alone, right? Are we the only ones doing that, or are there other districts doing a 7-period day? So I kind of did a little bit of a dive into that. And then also, well, how many kids failed? Oh my God, look at that, the PowerPoint. How many students failed, and where were the failures happening? So those are 2 additional questions that came at the end of the study, and you'll see them in the report. All right, finally, let's go to the next slide, Dave/Kayla. Thank you. So this is our kind of a snapshot of what I found with the graduates, 2017 graduates, and I didn't do the deep dive from their 9th grade, but at the end of the senior years, this was the year that you had 22 credits as a requirement, and what I found that with those additional 2 credits, with the 6-period day, you had 23.4 seniors who needed those extra 2 credits or 4 semesters, 0.5 credits in order to graduate on time. So I would say back in 2017, when they didn't have this new component of 2 more credits, you have students who've always needed that buffer. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think the data's there for you. You always will have students who know how to earn more credits because they love it. They take, they might take a running start course, or they might take a snow aisle course that gives them 1.5 credits. So you do have kids who always come out with more than their needed credits, but you did have a number of seniors who very much so needed to have that buffer. Okay, let's look at class of 2020. So this is where the 24 credit requirement kind of hit them for this class. So the 7-period days started in their 10th grade year, so in the 2017-18 school year. These were students who did need to meet this new credit requirement. As you recall, I know it's a painful memory, but 2019 to 2020 was the year of the pandemic. So it was a really tough year for everyone, with students, doing homeschool packets, doing online virtual learning. That was the year of no Fs, and that was the year of partial credits being given, even at, for the advisory. A lot of things went into for this class. Okay, next, Dave, Kayla. Well, so what did we learn from the 2020 graduates? you had great news. You had 3 who got their, 8 students who got their associate's degree. But again, you start looking at the students. You had 96 students who actually graduated with a regular diploma. 104 total graduated, but 96 graduated with a normal, regular high school diploma. And if you kind of look down at the slide, you start seeing that where kids were, where your students were, and how many credits they were able to earn. So 21 earned 28 credits or more, so they earned every credit they could during their time at Sultan High School. And actually, if you think about it, in 9th grade, they were on a 6-period day, and they came into a 7-period in their 10th grade year. And then you start seeing where your students started, 28 seniors had 27 to 27.99 credits, and then you start kind of fading. 23 seniors earned 26 to 26.87 credits. 8 seniors just earned 24 to 24.99. And remember, these are kids who had 27 credits available. You had 16 who earned under 24 credits and graduated. And that's a little bit of a data issue that Dave and I uncovered, because Power School has this information, and maybe at the high school, there's documentation where those 16 kids actually did have enough credits. But from our dive in, 16 were under the 24 credits. So next slide. And stop me anytime, because all I see is me and the PowerPoint. So if we back out the 3 additional credits, right? If you hadn't offered a 7-credit day starting in their 10th grade, it's really about 49-ish, 49 something percent. So I rounded it up to 50%. But you would have had almost 50% of your seniors. Let's see. Only 50, that's right, only about 50% of your, look, so you had a split. 50% of your seniors would have made it. The other 50% needed those additional credits. Or credit opportunities, I'll just say. Right, so good news is 50% did well without the 7-period day and even earned more, but you had 50% who really needed those extra opportunities to earn credit. Next slide. So now we're going to look at cohort, and this was a deep dive that took Dave and Julie and I hours to kind of grapple through all the data. So these are the kids who came back into a hybrid model. The grades A through D could be given right at the beginning. You could give no Fs. And so when I started to look at the students, and I can go into the report any if you'd like, you had 87 seniors who earned 24 to 34 credits. As I say, you have kids who they take as many classes as you possibly give them and that they can possibly take. They take online courses from other entities. They take a variety of courses that give them additional credits. But you had 7 kids students who earned 23 to 23.75 credits. 1 senior earned 21.5 credits. So they were under, but those 8 students met the requirements by summer school. Summer school really saved them. Their credit retrieval courses from BYU came in. They had courses that they took at RAP, And they were late coming in at the beginning, and when we were starting to look at the data, and it took all the way to the end, almost of August, to get that in. And then there were other, I would say there were waivers that went into the system, there were documentation that went into a log that then needed to be read and dealt with. So there were missing credits and missing waivers that then came into effect for those kids. Any questions yet?
No?
Okay, all right, so one of the extra questions that we had was, well, what about credit retrieval courses? Well, you had 34 students who took credit retrieval, and they earned 73 credits, which is pretty phenomenal. And these students took over 100, I know it's bizarre, they took over 106 semester courses. And I would say without these courses, you had 36% of your seniors would not have graduated. They depended on those courses. They often took those courses, they took some courses multiple times before they passed them. Or sometimes after multiple tries with credit retrieval, they went on to a different course. All right, next slide. We dove in to see when did kids kind of go off the rail? When weren't they on track? And I would say the good news is the ninth graders, almost 90% were on track at the end of their ninth grade year. So that means they had at least 6 credits, if not 7. Most of your ninth graders had a successful year. And then it kind of went downhill. 10th grade, only 67% of your kids were on track by the end of their 10th grade year. Got a little tiny bit better in 11th grade, not much, because sometimes they fell off. Kids who were on track in 10th grade went off the edge in 11th grade. So you had 69.5% of 11th graders that were on track. And what was interesting when Dave and Julie and I dove into the data, you had students who had their 18 credits. So if you think of 11th grade, if everybody needs to at least have 6 credits per year, they had 18 credits. They didn't have, what the problem was, they didn't have them in what I call the required buckets. So they might have had 18 credits, but they didn't have a U.S. history credit, or they didn't have a credit in ELA, 11th grade English. So something was off for them. Either they went off and did Running Start and didn't take the right courses, or a number of reasons. In 12th grade, that was the year of the great makeup, and kids were, you had students who took an enormous amount of classes per semester just trying to make it graduate on time. And you had 90, so you actually had, when I look at the data, or when we did, there were 100 students, 95 graduated, earning the required credits. 5, you had dropouts. You had 2 that were D2, 2 D7, and 1 U1, which is unknown. Next slide, 7-period day. So what do we know about the 7-period day? Just a quick search. So State Board of Ed does a report every year, and on one of the questions they ask every superintendent of every district, how many, at high school, how many periods do you offer? And so then they get kind of a sense across the state. And so the 7-period day is actually being utilized across Washington State in a variety of kind of scenarios. So you've got district settings, so you've got rural, you've got town, you've got suburban. I didn't see very many urban districts that did a 7-period day. And really, that's like Seattle and Tacoma. Those are our huge kind of districts, and Spokane. But there, you know, Quilcene, which is a little district up in my neck of the woods up here in Jefferson County, they have a pre-K-12 school all in one, and they run a 7-period day for their high school. Davenport, Washington, east side of the mountains, Snoqualmie Valley, Fort Townsend, again, my side of the, up here and up on the Olympic Peninsula, North Shore, Cedar-Woolley, and Lake Washington districts. So there, and I just did a cold call of folks I know, or kind of looked at high school schedules to try to get a sense of where are these 7-period 7-period day districts. And then you've got some that are a little bit out of the box, which is they do a 4x4 schedule, and a few high schools are utilizing those, such as Monroe High School, Ferndale High School, Cleveland High School. So in Seattle, it's every high school does something different, so they actually have a 4x4. Multiple districts still use a 6-period day, but the State Board of Ed's caveat is there is a 0 hour and a 7th period that, even though they say they have a 6th period, there is actually probably 8 available for kids. Next slide. So failing grades, this was a little sad, a little eye-opening, I think, for all of us, but I just asked Dave and Julie let's just look at first semester across all grade levels for last school year, just first semester, and we found that 190 students failed. They earned failing grades. There were 554 Fs given in 63 different courses by the end of first semester. Several courses had double digits, so 47, 43, 27, 33. So, pretty high for a course and one semester. And the courses ranged. You had ELA courses, so English Language Arts, you had science, there were social studies, and there were art classes, CTE classes, and I just noticed I had a typo in this that should say social studies, not social students. CTE courses, electives, so they were all over the map. 58 students failed at least one course, but the really eye-opening is 132 students failed 2 or more courses, and of those 132, 35 students failed 5 or more courses, and oftentimes it was 1 grade level. 10th grade was a horrible year, and they failed everything. So that was a huge number for failures, which then helps us to realize why credit retrieval was such an important element for multiple students. And then our last slide, Dave, or Kayla. So what I would say is you have a percentage of students who really needed the opportunity or the buffer provided by a 7-period day, by online courses, summer school, the Snow Isle. They needed multiple ways of being able to earn credits, I guess I'd say, multiple opportunities to complete courses. They were credit retrieval courses, summer school courses, Snow Isle courses, RAP in Marysville, BYU. That you had a number of students who earned proficiency in ELA so they could get a retrieval a credit in English language arts if they had failed a semester. There were students who earned state competency-based language assessment, so they earned a world language credit, which was really pretty wonderful for them as well. So multiple means, multiple opportunities, and definite, I think the report shows a definite need for something for for your students. Questions? And can I see faces now?
Yes.
Any questions from the board?
I don't have any questions, no. It's pretty clear.
So, I would just comment that, one of the things that has been an ongoing challenge that, well, I'll share a couple things. If you think about what she said about the number of kids that earned credits in credit retrieval, that is really more of a recent thing, where kids come in and they test. They take a test and it shows where they're at. They don't have to start the course over, meaning they have knowledge of the subject matter and the content pretty good. They do pretty well there. Wasn't but a few years ago that that's not the way it was. They had to go in and they started the course over. I think personally that, when you look at all of those Fs, the question I would ask is, to what degree does that letter grade tell me about what the student is learning or not learning? Meaning, there's a whole bunch of stuff that gets brought into the whole grading deal that maybe really isn't, it's necessary. I mean, being present is necessary, participating is necessary, but how much of a percentage of that should that be of a grade?
Well, it's possible that they're acquiring the knowledge, but if they're not turning in papers or homework, you're gonna get an F.
That's correct.
Well, that's what, I'm on the scheduling committee that's looking over this, and that's what we found was a lot of the kids that went into summer school, they can test out of that. So a lot of the kids come in and take the test and they know the stuff, but they still had failed the class, so.
And so, from my role, whether it's me as a superintendent or me as a parent, I want to know, if I'm looking at a grade that says a D or a C or a B or whatever it is, does that tell me how they've learned the various standards that are required at that grade level?
If everything's working properly, I think it would.
Yeah.
But, we just came out of a time when we couldn't give Fs. So, you could have a student that thinks that they're doing well and fall behind, especially on the curriculums that need to be in line. You can get a D in Algebra 2 and then follow up this trig pre-cal or something, and you think you're okay, but you really should have had a 47% and an F.
Yeah.
I think going through that period of time, we have a lot of, it's hard to analyze the data clearly when we couldn't
Yeah,
reflect
that's
real
true.
grades.
There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. And there's still, I would just say this, there's still carryover where, some of the participation and attendance habits haven't changed a lot from that era,
Well, and I think the conclusion I drew from this is we need to have those additional periods for kids. How many kids without them wouldn't, in the 1 year, 50% of our kids would have failed, and maybe credit retrieval is this new way of doing things, but ultimately it'd be great if at the end of every class, the semester, the child, the student, adult has earned the knowledge, and it's reflected by their grade in the class, whether they're engaging in discussion, turning in all of the homework, but that's a model we have. This, I won't pay attention and then I go test out of something that flies in the face of what I think is good education. And that's just me.
I mean, if I don't show up to work, but I can do my job, I'm not gonna have a job. If we teach them they can just test out, what are they gonna be once they get in the real world? They're gonna like, I don't have to show up, I know how to do my job. They're gonna lose their job and be homeless. I mean, we can't overlook the fact that you need to show up and be present.
And engage.
something isn't resonating in that.
Yes.
I mean, I don't disagree with it, but there's something not resonating.
Well, I think
because-
we're gonna be dealing with the shutdown of our schools for as long as those students are still in our schools. Because the third graders didn't get third grade that year, and the fourth graders, and so we're gonna be playing catch up, and I think it's probably unfortunate but ridiculous to assume that we can do it without additional class time and additional dollars, but that's what we're being dealt with. We almost, you know, if you looked at it from just, we need to make certain all of our kids are educated, the state would have found a way to fund an extra year of education, and we would have done that year over so that they entered the next year properly. I know that that would have been a major uproar for the entire parents and teachers and everything.
I guess what I would say to that is, I don't disagree. Learning a work ethic and your responsibility and showing up, those are all important things. I wouldn't say tying it into your grade is having any impact on students whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's something we need to work on.
That's just me, having been around this for as long as I have. I mean, I think they just throw up their hands at a certain point, and there's gotta be a different way to do that.
Well, and, you know, I think utilizing the tools we have, because we don't have to wait till the end of a quarter or semester to ascertain that they have fallen behind. We have a tool that our parents can look at every day, and we really need to get back as a community where the teachers are updating those things on a daily or at least several times a week basis, and parents are looking at it, because that's how we're going to affect change. The kids aren't going to change on their own if the adults around them don't show them a way to change. They're just going to continue acting and doing what they're doing, I believe.
So Gigi, what are the next steps for the scheduling committee?
We are looking at different scheduling options. And I think our next, Paul had sent us something, uploaded something. Our next meeting, we're gonna go through those and kind of narrow them down. We did decide, though, as a group, that going back to what we used to do, the 6th period, that's off the table. So whether it's, we're gonna look at block schedules, like every other day, any different kind of schedules, ones that put in an hour during the day to catch up on work, just different types of schedules. And we're gonna start going through those and then kind of just come up with a recommendation at the end.
I think it's interesting in looking at the schools that you found that utilize the 7th period and the schools that you utilize others. I wouldn't model us after the Tacoma or Seattle School District for achieving academic
no.
excellence. But
I would not either,
Right,
no.
but I would look towards North Shore and Lake Washington. Those are well-run, well-educated schools in our state. And those are schools that have the funds to study this stuff, do the research, and they ended on the 7th period day that we decided, I don't know how many years ago it was we went to this.
So might I add that North Shore, so one of the things that they have done, and I haven't studied them in the last couple years, but they have a block schedule but a 7-period day. Does that make sense? So it's not a 4x4, it's not where kids are earning 4 credits per semester, 8 per year. They do 1, 3, 5, 7, I'll just kind of, as an example. And then the next block will be 2, 4, 6. There's an advisory in there somewhere. They do, one of their days at least has been an early release day, so that's where the periods are squished, and then they have a regular 1 through 7. So it provides a day for classes to have a bulk of time, and then, for 1, 3, 5, 7, and then 2, 4, 6 as well. So, there's a variety of ways to look at a block schedule, for sure. The other thing I'd like to say that would be good to review is there were students who failed, and what I found interesting, and Dave and I can probably find this, is there would be students who fail, I'm just going to name a course, biology, and they might fail that course twice, even do retrieval and fail it, and sometimes it took until the 3rd time before then an alternative science was found for the students. So that's an interesting kind of concept to look at too. Are there different pathways that give a student life science without having to be biology, or is there a different type of biology that that might pique students' interest? just as an example.
Those-
How many times does it take you to fail something before you get that alternative? That's a question I would have.
My only worry about that is, with all of these alternative classes, if it isn't just a change in rigor, not a change in the curriculum. And that I would worry about that being, well, I found an easier course, so I got through it and I got the credit, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have the same rigorous educational experience we want.
Yeah, I'm not talking about, yes, exactly, I'm not talking about going to an easier course. Those are the days gone by. We don't,
But how do we know that if it's a, so these are truly, are, they're going to an alternative class in our school system, or are they using online?
maybe it's available more in a bigger school than it is, you know, if I think about a North Shore Bothell High School or a Woodinville High School or a North Creek High School, you know, where you have 1,700 students. You may have a marine biology as well as a biology. You might have two, they meet the same life science standards, they are rigorous, but or environmental science. So they're meeting students' needs and yet hitting the same standards.
So our students are taking those courses through those school districts?
No.
Well, then how?
She said
A
it's
good
an
example-
example.
I know.
A good example would be Brandy Varnell's class
Yeah,
can be reclassified as 3 different types of
sure, I
credit.
get that.
Right, and so instead of it being, let's just say biology, it could be classified as a life
That's the dual
science
credits.
Right.
or something else because they didn't do well in the biology, but they did well in her class.
Right.
So it can be reclassified and they still get that same credit because it's
All within
another
our-
class. It's still a difficult class to pass, it's just a different content that may draw their interest in a different way.
I thought I understood that a lot of these retrievals where they're finding classes outside of our classroom space using alternate online,
They're using our online platform to do it.
But it's our
Some of
online
our
platform.
kids are, yeah.
It's ours.
they're using our online, which means that who is teaching the course? One of our educators or some other educator in another district?
No, it's, we have 2 teachers that do the summer, and they oversee the students doing it online.
Okay, but the class is being taught, I'm assuming, being presented by somebody in another environment. We have a proctor here basically in the room.
Yes, correct.
So that proctor in the room is not teaching this class. The online thing is teaching the class.
Correct.
And how do we know that we can all say it's as rigorous, but how do we know that?
You don't.
That's the point I'm getting at. So we have we assign a curriculum for science, and we have all of these different ones, and a student, and I want them all to pass, and I want them to leave with the educational experience, but they can't pass our biology in your example twice, and they find an alternative class that we don't know if it's equal or less or even more difficult because we didn't pick that curriculum. And I worry about a district losing its ability to adopt the curriculum that they want their students. I think there are students that could, I mean, I went to high school, and if you can find an easier way to do something, I think it's not unbelievable that a student might do that and leave with a diploma that doesn't mean as much as somebody that passed all of the classes we have.
Well, here's another example. Sultan Virtual Academy. We use Spokane School District's online curriculum. We didn't have, depending on the year, we didn't have enough kids to offer an AP calculus course.
Right.
The highest of high classes. So in trying to figure out how we were gonna do that and make sure that these kids had the necessary rigor, in talking to the Spokane School District, some of what I got answered my questions were, our kids that go through our online version score higher on the AP test than kids that go through the brick and mortar.
Well, I don't doubt at all
And
that
so
some of
that-
those courses are as
Yeah,
rigorous.
so I don't know how you test that, but the point's well taken, I just don't know how you test it.
But it's not that this is still curriculum that we're approving,
Yeah,
because
they're
there
not
are
just
students that
going
are
out and getting
taking it.
anything. It
They're-
has to be approved by us.
There's,
Right.
on those online forms though, we haven't read through and looked, we haven't had a committee that approved each one of those curriculums. We said, this is a system we can use, unless I missed a large group of meetings. This is just, we adopted, we can use this outside school.
We approved the system.
And the systems are approved through Washington State, through OSPI also.
Yeah, I understand that, but they approve what's going on in Seattle school districts who are failing and in Omis. I just don't, I'm not convinced that credit retrieval is the answer to schools now. In fact, I think it's
I mean, if you
the
look,
opposite of the answer.
so the best thing is tier one instruction. That's the
Yes.
core instruction in a regular classroom, okay? And that's, you want to be the same, but I'll be really honest with you. You can line up 5 adults, and you're gonna find different levels of rigor. You
Yes.
want it all the same and all high.
Well, it's also summer school, it's not just credit retrieval, so they have to go in the summer and do the stuff in order to pass the class. So it's not like they're just getting off scot-free.
No,
They still have to come back in. I think the biggest thing is, why are those kids sitting in class and not getting the information that the teacher is giving them? I think that's the biggest
That's
thing
a
we
root-
need to,
that's the root
that's
of
what
it.
we need to
And
concentrate on.
to me, it's not, they just 24 credits at the end of their high school career. It's that 24 valuable credits for the things that this community, through the different things that we've put together, they have a knowledge of those things. And if we're having kids that are failing half of their classes and recovering them from programs that we're not certain are more rigorous or less rigorous, that diploma, although it looks the same down the road, they don't have the education that they could have had. And going back to what you said, Gigi, we really need to look at that, why we have so many that are being disconnected. Anybody have any more questions? Thank you so much this was a very in-depth dive, as I think you've said several times.
You're very, and kudos to Dave Moon and Julie, truly, for sticking with me.
Carolyn took me down data holes. I had no idea even existed.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Carol. We'll be in
Thank you.
touch. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. CFA, oh, sorry, Russ.
Okay.
Stealing your job there.
You're welcome to it. CFAC logistics bond presentation.
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily call this a presentation other than, can you pull this doc up that I put up there? I just wanted to give you an opportunity to catch up and kind of share where we are and what things might be in front of us. We meet again as a Citizen Facility Advisory Committee tomorrow night. 2 people are in here that are on the CFAC committee. Let's take a look. Christine Olson is here, and Jeff Estes, and, well, 3, Heidi Dawson. So they have participated since the beginning, and so I think tomorrow night is our 15th meeting. And so we've honed in on a plan that would, look at turning Gold Bar into a K-4 school. That would add on, use the matching money there, build a new K-4 school up off the Sultan Basin on those 50 acres we're in the process of purchasing. Turn this campus into a 5-6 campus, which would cut it in about half, about 630 students to about 300 based on today's numbers. The middle school would turn into a 7-8 campus. And then just today, Ben Fields, who's working as a consultant with us, we turned in a package to Carolyn Eslick for a STEM center at Sultan High School that is 18,000 square feet, costs about $14 million. That would give us 12 classrooms, 8 classrooms for basic ed at 900 square feet apiece, and 4 classrooms for STEM education that are 1,200 square feet apiece. So that's where it rests. And the cost of it, it seems excessive, but when you look at the cost of some of these bonds, $79 million to do all that work. And so we will come back on the 13th of November and do a presentation. I saw one today from North Kitsap, $240 million. I think that North Shore is in the 500, or not North Shore, Lakes Washington in the 500 million. It's the cost of building buildings at schools is so extraordinary that it's just the reality of it. So I also included in there a document that shows what our current matching funds are. And so you can see that Sultan Elementary School, the building we're in right now, does not qualify for any matching money until 2031. The two buildings that qualify for quite a bit are Gold Bar Elementary, surprisingly, our newest and nicest school. And the reason why it qualifies is because it was on a 20-year, the 20-year renewal of that when the building was built. And so the board accepted the D forms in time so that it didn't move to a 30-year deal. Now they're all 30 years. And that's why it is. And so in high school, the challenge is we qualify for just about $12 million that we could put towards this STEM center, but we can only access the $12 million if we remodel the school. And it's not where the primary needs are right now. There are needs. We got more kids out in portables than we do in the building, and one science lab. I think part of my overall message to Representative Veselick is that the SCAP model, the funding model, is archaic, doesn't serve rural communities like ours well, and we need help to even it out so that what happens here in a rural community like Sultan is not drastically different than what it takes to do something like this west of us.
So would she try to get that put into a budget bill?
Yeah, she's working with them right now. I've been emailing back and forth, and you know, we're going down that road. I also wanted to show you, if you can pull up that, there's another sheet in there, Kayla. I think has to do with how some of the matching, the dollars might go up.
Yeah.
It shows you where we currently are. We're currently at $258 a square foot, and so that's what it's based on right now. If you look to fiscal year 25 and beyond, it starts to go up pretty substantially. Now, it doesn't mean that you should necessarily wait, because we believe we could.
That's just a recommendation.
This is just a recommendation.
Yeah, it's not going up at all until Sunday.
Nothing's been decided here, but this whole thing is a big challenge. So even if running a bond and passing a bond, we could you know, likely get in wherever the cost is at that point, which would be a big help, because we've figured out all of our costs at $258.92 a square foot. So that's where it stands. You guys, you know, Jeff, Christine, Heidi, anything?
It's just gonna get more expensive.
That's the challenge.
A lot more expensive if you look at those charts and cost of construction.
That's the challenge, is waiting for this doesn't, you don't get anything out of it, because I think we can tap into, you know, even passing a bond, if we did in February of '24, you're still talking about 2026 construction.
Any questions on this subject?
I have a question. Refresh my memory, what is CCA acronym for?
In that one, it does.
Oh, construction cost allocation.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, it's in the paragraph.
see it
up
now,
there.
yeah.
Gotcha.
You answered your own question.
I did. I just needed to look up.
All right, if there are no further questions, we'll move on to teaching and learning department update. Michael Mayer.
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
So I chose three kind of topics today. Kind of, they're a little bit random, but they do kind of all fit into the beginning of the year type things. First of all, highly capable forms, which we go through. Start at this point. We try to have individual learning plans to share with parents during conferences, but it's also a time when parents ask for those forms, interest forms basically, and then that starts a process. They turn them into the counselors in each building. So, I did want to let you know that we have 150 in program for highly capable this year. So it's a pretty good size group to work, and they are in first grade through, and then the honors and AP classes in the high school. So they've been qualified, they stay qualified until either parents stop them or the kids themselves take them out, which at 18 they can do. But so those are all of the kids that we have in the program, so it's quite a bit. bigger. Last year, we did put in the Naglieri test, which was done it's a nonverbal test in first grade. State requires us now to actually put in 2 screening tests in our system. And so we put the Naglieri, which is nonverbal, which also allows us to kind of fish for multilingual students because it's nonverbal. So they can look and recognize pictures and things like that. So it's a different test, different type of test than our normal COGAT that we use in 3rd grade. So, and then everyone goes through that same process. Any questions on highly capable? Just let me know kind of where we are. Yes.
I have a question. What's the benefit for a student to be in the highly capable program?
So, thank you for asking. So the benefit is highly capable learners are wired a little bit different, I guess to put it down in a kind of vernacular. But they, so being we have a cluster model, so they actually move through school in a cluster model, and they research says that having like-minded people that you work with is beneficial. So that's one of the benefits. The other is that sometimes we actually find that we would have behavior problems because kids are bored in class. So there's more engagement, and so the teachers, we're working very hard to make sure that the teachers receive the professional development to do that. This year we're going to be working on depth and complexity, which is one of the kind of 2 big areas for the highly capable learner to have those ideas and put forward. So advantages are that we need to meet their needs and meet their needs in as many ways as we can. So,
And are we offering that both at Sultan L,
yes, we are.
Gold Bar L, Sultan
Yes.
Middle, and the high school?
That is correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. So moving on, thank you for the question. WA Kids, which is our transition, WA Kids is our teaching strategies that we do observation on, kindergarten teachers and transitional kindergarten, and actually any kindergartners so we have some in the SLC program here at Sultan that are taking that. So 10 classrooms, and there will be, all of our kindergartners will be observed and documented on where they are in 6 big areas: mathematics, literacy, cognitive language, physical, and social emotional. So they look at all 6 areas, and then we have a kind of a score at the end, so we can share those results with you when we get them, and those will be available, I think, probably in December, probably come back at the January to share those, January meeting to share those. So that's, those are going on right now. They have 10 weeks from the beginning of school to get those tests started. They did not test their observations, and they did actually do a really nice enhancement from Teaching Strategies, which is the company the platform that they use. They can actually do things with their phone, even though we have phones not used, but they can actually take pictures with their phones of the kids with because they have to upload evidence, and so it's a little bit easier. The last thing I'll take questions for that in just a moment, but I just want to let you know that our new education induction program, we have our 1st and 2nd years. We're quite small this year. We have 4 brand new teachers. We have 4 second-year teachers, and then we have 4 additional that join the first years in their learning of our framework, the Self-ID framework. And so we do 6 hours of training with anyone who comes into the district that hasn't had our framework. So the 3 frameworks in the state are Danielson, Marzano, and we do Self-ID. So if you have not been in one of those, or if you've been in the others and you're not Self, we have to go through that with them. So, and then I carry the first years all through next January, March, and May. So it's just I meet with them about in the spring it's every other month. Right now it's been every month. So I try to get them what they need to have that, and they have mentors. All of them have mentors. Questions?
All right, you're out.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Next Next up is Dr. Paul Douglas, Student Services Department. Dave.
Good evening, directors. I have 3 things as well. Let's start with the 7-period day. Just kidding. I just want to make sure you're paying attention. So, okay, the first one I want to talk about is our McKinney-Vento students. So McKinney-Vento is our homeless students. For the last several years, we've been running between 15 and 17 for the entire school year. We're at 22 as of today. So you can see that the numbers are continuing to rise due to probably a number of things. As we're getting into November, December, this is the time of year where we see needs increase dramatically. It's also the time of the year where we see depression, anxiety also on the rise. And as Gigi knows from the Mental Health Committee, this is a time where we have concerns as we watch students. Some students are really happy about going into the holidays, while others obviously are not. So it's a time of year for celebration and concern, so especially for those that are without shelter, food, and so on. So,
Are those, I know the state identifies homeless in a couple different ways, are those that group of students, are they ones that are living with like maybe their grandparents? You know, because we have to bus kids if they're not in their original.
Right.
Is that this group of?
Most of the ones we're seeing are doubled up or in shelters right now. So a lot of doubled up is what we see a lot in this district. So we do see some of the shelters where we're making that drive.
Doubled up is with relatives?
No, doubled up can be with relatives. So you have one family moves in with another family. So you might have, you know, husband and wife and family moving in with their brother, brother-in-law, stuff like that. The other doubled up as we see is kids that are basically couch hopping. So they might be staying at one person's house for a couple of days and move to another person's house. So we see quite a bit of that, especially at the high school level. So, and of course, it's not, they don't always self-report, so we find other ways to identify them. And our student support advocates do a lot of work with that. So as part of that, we belong to Operation School Bell. It's due to Title I schools, Title I districts. So last year, we had 70 students participate, and then this year was 80. Because we continue to rise in numbers, next year we get 90 slots for it. So again, it's a celebration and a concern that our numbers continue to rise for needs. So we're just thankful that Operation School Bell can meet so many of the needs of our kids. So the other update I just wanted to give you is on PLCs. I don't know if Dan was going to give you an update or Gigi on the update, but just a quick overview for the last couple of weeks. Staff and administrators have been participating in the essential learnings for math, both at the elementary level and the secondary level, and how to take the essential learnings and break those down, and then look at what the proficiency scales are. So kind of going to the rigor that was talked about earlier this evening. What does that rigor look like for each of the essential learnings or the standards? So that's been in the works the last couple of weeks. This week on Wednesday and Thursday, it'll be ELA that'll be looked at for the elementary and for the secondary. So lots of work in progress around that, and there's been a workshop around healthy culture. What does your healthy culture look like in a PLC model? And then I know you guys have some training coming up in January, which you know.
Actually, I've got some, October 30th was the first one.
I was gonna ask, the October 30th, that's virtual?
Two different times, it's virtual.
Right. So are we gonna get a link to that, or?
Yeah, I think we might already have it.
I think we have that one from Janelle, but we'll
Is
double
it either
check
like a 2 or a 4?
There's a 2 p.m. or a 4 p.m. It's one of 3 over the course of this year for board members. I guess I would just add to this, Paul, about the PLC thing. This isn't really our first go-around with them, but it's our first real commitment to go in depth with it. And so some folks might say, well, what are you doing different? Already been here, already done this. Well, the level of support that the guiding coalition team is getting is much different than has ever happened. It's connecting that level of support to every teacher and every school and every building that will really make a difference. So if you were to go out and talk to folks, they might say, well, we already did all this, you know? And I would argue, if you think you've already done what we're doing, then you haven't really done it, because the level of support is what's really different. And over time, over these 3 years, should make a really noticeable difference in what's happening.
I think what added to that, just is the level of, the difference, is when we look at how we evaluate the standards as using a research-based tool that was created by Doug Reeves, one of the researchers. It's called the REAL. It breaks down to what does that essential learning come down to? Is it a leverage, something that will translate from that classroom throughout multiple content areas and into life, real life experiences? So when we evaluate that, we're going much deeper in depth than just a recall level. It doesn't get to meet these standards. So it's a much better tool than perhaps used in the past, which will allow us then to align assessments to that as well. So. And the third thing I had to just kind of give you an update on special education. I won't go into great detail. I know I depressed you last time, so I'm going to keep it short this time on that. We were identified by the state as disproportionate, which means I have to convene a committee and look at why we're disproportionate in the area of EBD, so emotional behavioral disorder. Our white males are identified as being overqualified in that area, so we have to figure out why our white male students are being overqualified for EBD. So,
What does that mean in layman terms?
it means that the number of students that are eligible under the eligibility category of emotional behavioral disability are primarily white males in our school system.
And they're higher than the rest of schools.
And they're higher than the rest of our percentage of different ethnic groups. So like our Hispanic population is roughly around 22. Mark, or Mike might be able to pull that up. Is that about right? Yeah. So of the Hispanic population, our white population, which is approximately 65%, our numbers of white students compared to Hispanic students, compared to the percentage that they actually exist, are far higher than those numbers. So,
Is this consistent with previous years, or is this an anomaly year?
no, it's been consistent the last 2 years. I think I talked to OSPI about it. One of the struggles is our demographics itself. There's a number of different issues that we have to look at. Specifically is one is what are our demographics for our community. The second is what resources do we have in our community. So primarily Sultan has, as we've talked about in the past, has limited resources for families to go to get early intervention. So if you were living in Everett or on the west over by the I-5 border, there's many opportunities. There's less opportunities here. So the schools become the services for these students instead of the early intervention. So that is typically one of the issues, along with demographics. So that's unfortunate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions?
I've already asked mine, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Thanks, Cliff.
Monthly financial report.
Good evening, directors. The title of that is a little misleading, as what I'm going to do is go over the F-196. I do not have September financials done because I've been focusing on getting year-end finished. So my goal is to have September financials at the next meeting, and then October financials to be caught up at the end of November. So that November will be caught up again. But we did send off been working for the better part of 2 weeks. I did send off to the ESD on Friday a draft of the F-196 year-end financial statements. I did hear back from Lauren McLeod, my fiscal supervisor at the ESD. She had looked over them, and we did correspond some today. Found nothing substantive, just some cleaning up entries and things like that we need to do. So basically what I've given you is just a very highly summarized report as far as the fund balances and where they are right now. I'll go through with you, I did not give to you, but I will report to you right now the differences between what we budgeted for the ending fund balances versus where we feel that they will end. In general fund, the budget for ending fund balance was $1.5 million. Currently, we're at $1,853,545, or a difference of a positive $353,545 higher than what we had previously projected. For capital projects fund, we had projected $450,000, and the actual will be $1,254,782. difference of $804,000. While that seems very significant, please understand at the time that we put the budget together, we had not yet gotten our first SCAP reimbursement payments for the construction project, so the timing of when those were gonna come in was very, very uncertain at that particular time. So it's more related to the timing of receiving those reimbursements than it is just found money that came out of the sky. Okay. Next, debt service fund was within $32 of estimate. ASB is a positive $45,324, higher than initial budget estimate, and transportation vehicle fund is within about $2,000 of estimate. So all in all of them were higher to varying degrees than our budgeted amounts were, which is good. And as I said, was glad to see that upon initial review of the ESD, Lori did not find anything substantive that she was questioning at this point. So hopefully we'll have that wrapped up in the next couple of days.
Questions?
Okay, I think I'm way up next.
October enrollment update, yes.
Yes, okay. So I am bringing to you enrollment. Typically would be something that I would do in conjunction with the financial statements for September, but as I had said before, I don't have those ready for you yet, but I did want to share with you the October enrollment. For October, we did see a modest increase as far as traditional, overall I should say, our traditional enrollment was up 4.2 FTE versus September, and our ALE was essentially flat for the prior month. These changes last year from September to October, we saw an increase of about 15. So we did see an increase, but not as substantial an increase as we saw last year between September and October. Going through some of the graphs that are there, again, the main thing that obviously was surprising to us is that right now at 22-23, our annual average FTE for traditional was 1938, and we're at 1919 now. So we're actually below where we were last year at this point, at about 19 students below. Kindergarten, the next one, this one again really stands out significantly. Now 2021 again is an anomaly. That's a COVID year, so that's really an anomaly. But the 142.5 versus prior year 174. I mean, this is a significant difference. We have two grades specifically that really stand out as far as discrepancies, which are kindergarten and 10th grade, where the differences are about almost half of our discrepancy is contained within those two grades. The kindergarten definitely were very surprised at how the numbers dropped off very dramatically in kindergarten. Next graph, again, just the traditional enrollment versus our budget estimate. See, our budget estimate is right at 2,000, and we did tick up just ever so slightly between September and October. And then the last one is your ALE, which essentially stayed flat between September and October. I know that we had talked about previously, and Dan and I had some conversations as far as the opportunity is there for us to reach out, and I have done so. I reached out to OSPI. I asked them what is the process, should the district consider a manual rollback of our enrollment. I talked with Melissa Jarman. It's not that difficult. Basically, they just want to know at what grades, what grade, where it is now, what do you want it to change to for all 13 grades. So I guess Dan and I talked about a little bit. I guess I would be interested in getting some input from the board as far as if we would like to do that starting in November, and if so, how aggressively would we like to do that so that we minimize that adjustment in January. That would give us 2 more apportionment months before the actual go live data in January. That would give us November and December. We had talked about 70. We certainly could be more aggressive than that and go, the full 100.
What was our rate of increase in enrollment last year between September and January?
I don't have that number. Like I said, September, October was 16, but I don't have a top
We
of my head.
grew, especially in this building, pretty steadily across the year.
And it's hard to judge it because, we're still coming back from, all these different COVID and
So,
hybrid.
some of the things we've learned is there's a rapidly increasing East Indian population. And so we have families that are not here that will be here in November. Can't tell you exactly how many. I live across the street from where there's a lot of homes being built, and they're still putting new sold signs up on them pretty regularly. It's difficult to tell. I think you probably I mean, there's kind of two ways to do this. I can tell you, years and years ago, districts used to overstate it purposely because they would collect interest on the money.
Yeah.
Right now, we're collecting interest on some money, so,
Yeah, interest income right now is up because of,
Yeah.
you know,
Interest
overall,
rates are-
interest rates that you can earn on savings are up.
So those are the arguments for not being aggressive with this rollback.
Right.
The
it'll be a
argument,
shock to the system in January when you look at fund balance.
Yes.
Because 67 of the problem is we budgeted for growth and it didn't happen.
no, we have shrinkage right now.
Right, yeah.
I'm of the mind to be as aggressive as we can without drastically impacting student learning, you know? I don't think you can cut a budget this amount and not have some impact on student learning.
Right.
I agree. I think we should go the more aggressive.
Okay, yeah, including the numbers that we just, you know, that we just shared with you through October, we're now 104.52 short. That shrunk slightly between September and October, but again, I mean, if the board wanted me to do 100, I mean, I certainly could reach out and do 100. I could do something less than 100.
Well, I think we'll have some growth. I'm not naive to think that we won't see some, but I'm okay in the 90 to 100. I'm okay in, like, I was thinking 90, but, you know, this is all,
It's.
But if we do
certainly
that,
could do
we
it.
don't get interest on the money that we,
You would get less money coming in. What that does is essentially
We're
it
talking
turns the
about
spigot
general.
down and
yes.
Yeah.
decreases the flow of resources coming in with the idea, you know, there's gonna be a reconciliation in January. They'll basically say, okay, you've had now, you know, September, October, November, December, you've had 4 months where you've been overpaid. We need to really, you know,
so
constrict that flow
instead
back.
of doing what, instead of saying, cut the numbers now, and we get less money, we could also not cut the numbers and just keep that money, pretend we don't have it, and get interest on it, right?
Correct. The
Yes.
the money would give you larger resources to collect interest on.
And we're earning about 5,000 a month.
Yeah, anywhere from 3,500 to 5,000 a month.
That was my
It's pretty
So then
substantial.
what we have to cut would be less, because we would gain interest.
I think it's just, again, it's
Would-
your.
$15,000 to $20,000 total over the period we're talking, so, I mean, in the grand scheme of things.
I've had people complain about the field trips being cut, and that would pay for field trips.
It would give you another modest source of additional income, yes.
My worry is that when you don't take that money away, we don't make as aggressive cuts, and then it's even
It's not
harder.
visible.
It's not, it's too easy to, we still have money in the bank, so let's just keep rolling, and we don't have that money in the bank, and it's over $1 million.
Because what, it has the effect of essentially overstating your fund balance is what it does, because again, it's gonna come back at some point. So those financial statements that you're preparing for September, October, November look a little overly optimistic, because then in January, you're gonna see a huge,
And I think by-
huge correction in January.
By intentionally not doing what we know we should do to earn interest would lead to, if I were in the legislature, I would clamp down on that. It just, to me, it
Well-
seems not right.
They would change the law and say, hey, if you miss it by X amount, you've gotta do this. I know years ago, they used to do it on purpose.
Right.
They would claim
And that's
200
just-
more than.
It's just not right. I mean, it's,
Kayla was able to, while we were chatting, bring up some numbers here of how it did last year. So that's 22, 23. That's ALE.
That's ALE, do the last.
Do you have, yeah, do you have
one.
traditional there? Okay, there you go.
so it was about 20 students.
Yeah, 925 to
No, we moved from-
950, yeah, 25-ish.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable going an 80%
So look at
adjustment.
80
Yeah,
reduction.
a reduction, but do it in December.
You know we're gonna start growing again at some point here because.
So it ends up
they're
being
building-
kind of
they're
not
building more
proportional.
houses.
Not proportional, because the elementaries grew, this school grew crazy.
Yeah.
But in the secondary, you have kids doing different things, and you drop off at the secondary level. So,
And the reason that they want you to do it by grade is because you are funded differently. Elementary students, you are funded a little bit higher amount than you are for secondary
K-3 in
students.
particular.
So, you know, like, as I'm looking at, kindergarten is an excellent example. I mean, we're way short on kindergarten, so as I'm looking at that, I'm 29 and a half short. Well, you know, probably, again, that's gonna be one I would probably dial back quite a bit, just because we're not gonna hit that number.
The higher we can get it, the better. If 80's the number the board approves, I can live with that.
So this won't even happen until the end of November, and so
Yeah, that's-
you're really not gonna miss out on a whole lot of interest, Karen,
Yeah.
2 months.
I just,
Be two months, yeah,
personally, I
November,
don't think that
December.
makes sense to do it that way, but that's me. I think we'd get, if it was wrong to do, they would make a law and say you can't do it. So there's no one says you can't keep the money and get interest, so.
To me, that feels like grabbing cookies out of the cookie jar until somebody says stop doing it.
And then you stop doing it.
Yeah.
But you knew in the first place
There's,
that you shouldn't do it.
I went through and looked at districts in all around our region. It's just astonishing how many kids are just disappearing from the rolls.
There's significant, I mean, Dan did a lot of work in looking at things, and there's, I would say the majority of districts are under. Yeah, and some significantly under.
Not to excuse it, but I think that, I'm kind of speaking of what you're talking about, Russ, I think if we're doing things intentionally, that's a problem.
Yeah, we didn't do it on purpose.
We're not doing this on
No,
purpose.
But we're now suggesting we should intentionally hold on to the money that we shouldn't have gotten and earned interest on it, which to me just feels wrong. And second, I think one of the concerns in doing these estimates of how many students, everybody that is employed by the school district is only talking to public, you're in this public school sector, and I'm working out in a different environment, and there's a lot of people looking at alternatives, or looking at, yes, we had houses built last year, and we shrunk, what are we down, 10, 15, 20 students over last year's?
19 students.
So the argument that houses are being built, we will eventually grow. I just don't know if it's gonna be this year, next year. Interest rates are at an all-time, or not an all-time high, but much higher.
30-year high.
Yeah, 30-year high
Well,
for buying houses.
And I sent you a report that kind of gave where everybody went. And, you know, homeschooling is a lot higher than it used to be.
It is.
We have a crew coming back that it didn't work out for, and a new crew going out.
Right. It worries me that we just keep that hope and plan for, we need to plan for the growth, and we need to eliminate having portables all over the campuses, but budgeting for this large increase.
Have to budget much more conservatively, and I think, you know, flat at the most, you know, is really where you gotta be. Because even if we would've budgeted flat, we'd still be 30 or so.
19
would be
under,
19.
as of right now, you'd be 19 under, yeah. So, again, the September number, obviously, we wanted to wait until we had a second month, until we had October to see if that was just an anomaly, if there was gonna be a significant rebound in October. It was very modest, the bounce up was very modest in October, so if we wanna make a change, now would be the time for me to get some guidance from you, and then I could convey that to OSPI.
Well, let's hear, I haven't heard what you're comfortable with, Cindy, or what.
I agree with you. I think we should be aggressive with that. You know, unfortunately, I don't see a change going up anytime soon. I agree, it's, you know, I'm an opponent of karma, and I like to have good
Yeah.
karma.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
my
not a
hand
way.
hurts from getting in that cookie jar, so.
I mean, we always have some fluctuations, so I think going as aggressive as 100 might be a little too aggressive. Because we know that there is going to be some
But even
coming
if you
back.
went 100, it'll be corrected upward if we grow in January. It
Right.
goes to actual. And so you only have 2 months of this regardless. They're either gonna pull more back, or they're gonna give us more, based on where we are in reality.
And I'm looking at us as stepping back, we need to train ourselves to live within our means as soon as possible. And that's really how I'm looking at it. The side where earning interest on money you shouldn't have, that just goes against my moral compass a little bit. But it really, more for me is, we gotta tighten our belts, and we needed to tighten them last month. And so the sooner we can do it, the more we'll become accustomed. It's gonna be painful. I don't want any child to miss out on any field trip or any other educational things. And if we can look at ways to have fundraisers so that some of those things can still happen. I know our community, even when times are tough, they're pretty good about giving, so that we don't miss out on them, but we have to live within our means.
I think Dan makes a good point, you know, again, do we have maybe some students' cultural differences that maybe still are going to show and that haven't yet in October, so.
Are they moving late?
No, I talked to Aubrey, and then I talked to the Monroe School District's got about 20 kids they know that are in India right now that are
Oh, they haven't moved into it.
There's something going on I don't fully understand, but they won't show up until November. We have a handful, I don't know how many.
Well, they could be on different schedule even for their classes in their years.
Yeah, but I would still, that's a bonus, I wouldn't plan on it as a lifesaver, so you still do it flat.
So it sounds like we're not gonna be 100% on it, but maybe 80, and you.
How about 90?
Well, I'm okay, I think we're gonna have growth, and if we're gonna have 25, then 80 puts us at 105, which is within a half of where we're at, so that's logical based on past growth patterns.
Yeah, because don't they distribute, or don't they take it back and they spread it out over the months, so it's not all done?
Correct.
Half of it would happen in January, let's say that you had $500,000 too much. 250 would happen in January, the other 250 spread out over the rest of the year.
Correct. The
Well, that's
reallocate
actually nice.
your
Yes.
your new annual amount gets calculated, and then you get that corresponding percentage. The pie basically just shrinks. You can think of it as a pie. The pie basically just shrinks. So the slices, the percentage of the slices are the same, but the pie is smaller, so therefore the total dollars are less each month.
Okay, and
So I'm not hearing you.
Gigi, I'm not questioning your morality, that may have sounded like that. It's just, I look at it a little bit differently, I know
I
that.
may have no moral compass,
No.
but I think that we should.
I wasn't implying that, and it may
We should
sound.
utilize the money that we have while we have it. It's gonna be the same amount that you have to give back no matter when it is, but you guys outvote me.
Well, I wish we knew what it was really, the exact numbers, because that's what I would
Am I-
wish for.
So am I hearing 80? Is that the number I'm hearing?
Sounds like it is.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that guidance.
Fiscal recovery plan.
So based on that, the number, it comes to about $1,176,189. And so lay it out in two parts. One would be, what are we doing over the course of this year? And if you feel like there's something that needs to be there that's not there, please say something. And you can take care of a pretty good chunk of it, 500,000+ in two moves. One of them is you don't buy math curriculum, which is, I think, what should be the last thing we decide, but unfortunately, it's an expenditure that you have to do something with. And then the other is, I'll let Dan explain it, but really the way the way the capital levy works is the general fund always pays a year in advance on things, and we get paid back, so we're just catching up a year in advance, if that makes sense.
Correct, yeah. Part of the technology levy, that, the first one that we had, there was staff that were funded out of that. And so what we do is I make a transfer in June of each year for the total cost of the salaries and benefits of those staff from capital projects fund to general fund. However, Dave is essentially one year behind, basically. So last year I took 21, 22. This year I would be taking 22, 23. Well, even though 23, 24 will be close to being done at the time that I do this in June of next year. So the idea would be is to take not only 22, 23, but 23, 24, 2 years worth, and you would essentially be caught up or almost in advance at that point. Now, there is an asterisk there. That one, obviously, that's an unbudgeted transfer. It's an additional transfer above what we looked at, so there's potentially some implications there. We need to make sure that Dave can still do the things that he needs to do as far as the staff and the equipment replacements and licensing and things like that. So that one we still need to, is still a little in flux. I'm not 100% certain that we can do, maybe we won't be able to do all of that. I would hope we could, but I don't have a firm answer on that one yet.
So, go ahead.
The $353,000 basically dollars that we have over our estimated budget for the last school year certainly can go towards this. That's almost 30% of the offset.
Yep.
And maybe I didn't read it in there, but it may be.
It's not, because
It's
when
not in
this,
there.
when
You
this
add that
was,
to it.
correct, this was prepared, this is essentially was kind of an open list that I sent to Dan, was on the 21st of September. So this has has been out there for, for a few weeks. So this information I gave you is new as of last Friday, so. yeah.
And I'm not, I'm planning on the budget number, and so even if you 1.8 million, what was it?
1.85.
1.85 million, and you look at this number here, and you subtract that from it, that leaves you with about $700,000 in the bank, which is an unacceptable level of money with our size budget. And so that's why you cut like this, because
Right.
if we were running a private business and, they said, well, you can keep 4% in your fund balance, I would say, you never run a business like that. We're working with the public's money, and
We don't have payroll, literally one month's payroll.
payroll, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, payroll's 2.5 million.
That's what I said.
Yeah, it's more than what we have in the bank.
Right.
So Dan is correct, it's twofold. It's not only trying to make the adjustments that you can this year. Now, again, once a year has started, your flexibility is limited. I mean, it's much more limited as far as the things that you can do, because you're committed, obviously, to the salaries and benefits of the people that are under contract for the duration of that year. So when we looked at that, we also looked at things that, again, I noted down here, non-grant, non-programmatically funded. Grants, you can't make cuts in grants because grants are based on reimbursement. You have to spend $1 to get $1 back, so you're not helping yourself any by cutting grant expenditures, okay?
You hurt yourself.
Yeah, all you're doing is reducing services, is all you're doing. You're not gaining any ground. So we're looking at basic ed, we're looking at district-wide support, Program 01, Program 97, things like that, where we can make some traction on things. Again, I will admit, some of these will be harder than others to materialize. But those are just some basic ideas that we've come up with.
So let me address bullets 3 and 4. It kind of talks about what Jeff said. Field trips are tied into this too. On any given day, we have our 2 dispatchers and our 2 mechanics are driving, because we barely have a bus force. And so what ends up happening is you end up paying significant amounts of overtime just to keep your buses on the road. And so when you add field trips into that mix, it further complicates it, because you've got sports teams trying to go out in the afternoon, you've got a secondary run and an elementary run. It's a complex situation. And so you really benefit from having enough drivers, and we in a lot of ways have lucked out and have been in much better shape than many districts. They're having to run staggered routes, they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff, or just canceling them.
Kids getting to school an hour and a half late.
You're getting to school an hour and a half late, and so I don't know that and I don't go out to the schools and complain and say, you guys gotta see how dire it is out there. People have enough to worry about, but talking about the complexity of this, I appreciate, the fact that you gotta start living within your means, like today. And we've already started this process. So what this third bullet says is there's 240,000 in extra time, okay? And I'm suggesting that we realistically try to cut 50% of it through various means. If you look at the certificated staff, there's about 108,000 in extra time.
Where is this?
Third and fourth bullet. Where are
Under
you
in
at?
no particular order. where it's-
25% reduction. Okay, I got it. And you're saying not 25, you want to, or I see 50% in classified and 25%, okay.
And so.
We just don't budget near as much in certificated extra time as we do in
Yeah.
classified.
And so here's the other part of that, and this kind of ties into the trips Jeff was talking about, and I understand that. We had a couple of schools go to Avid last year. They pay for that out of high poverty lap money, which is grant money. At the time that you're organizing those trips, you do not know that enrollment is going to be 100 below where you are. Aubrey took a group to Salt Lake City where we had 5 free seats, so they didn't have to pay for the registration, but he paid out of high poverty lap to go down to Salt Lake City. This thing was arranged last spring to do some PLC training. It's grant money. We can put it into staff or spend it a different way, but none of that is general fund money.
Correct.
And so that's the part
It
that
has to be spent that way.
is a little bit different, and I don't know. It's a matter of trying to continue to move forward even in the midst of these kinds of things. And so
I think it would be a good idea to, when you're cutting the adoption of a curriculum, to have a plan when you cut it, exactly when you're going to put that. Is it going to be in next year's budget? Because in my experience, when you put something off like that for a year, it ends up being 6 years before you bat an eye. And then in 6 years, you would have to do another pilot of all the programs, and you would be starting over on it. So I think it would be-
We've made tremendous gains the last few years in getting curriculum up to date. Mike and Gigi's been part of that, and Cindy a little bit. I don't know who else has, but we got on schedule and stayed on schedule and have increased a lot of stuff, but you have also a lot of subject areas.
Yeah.
Elementary math is one we need badly.
If you don't want to affect students, curriculum is the last thing we want to cut.
No, and Gigi, I get it. The reason that it is up there, and I think Dan's already touched it, just because it's a large number. You know, when you're trying to get to a large number as far as reductions, you look at large numbers. And those two, the first two items up there were the two largest numbers. I tried to be, as I went through this, again, I'm not claiming that this is a perfect list, but I tried to be fair and kind of spread things in various areas so that not any one area was overly impacted. But again, some of the things that we can do are limited, you know,
I've
during the year.
asked Scott to start to schedule trips, taking teams together.
Right.
To the extent we can. When you look at the cost of doing all those things, it's extraordinary.
Between trips, as far as, and what Dan said, trips, there's two things. There's logistical challenges as far as drivers being out of district and not having people and so forth. And then just the cost too. Obviously, that's something that you know, that we promote in our levy, but the cost of extracurricular trips and sports trips was about $105,000 last year is what it cost.
Well, we're cutting,
That's just for the trips.
we're cutting, what, 2% of our budget, 2% of our budget out of what is, we can only cut out of 20% of our budget, because 80% is payroll.
Correct. And slice the pie
It's like 10% of the things you can cut, we're cutting.
That's why it seems very impactful, because yeah, again, you're only really working in that 20% slice of that pie. The other 80% is essentially being untouched.
So let's go down to bullet number 5 or 6, personal appliances. You know, I've largely left my hands off of this just from a cultural perspective, and not done a lot with it because in some cases heating hasn't worked exactly right. In other cases, buildings were really worn. But we want to start with assessing, you know, 10,000 might be a grossly understated number. Was it a month at the high school, we had how much of a bill?
For
Electricity?
electricity at the high school, it depends on the month, but it can be,
What's a high number you can think of?
oh, we do 10 in a month.
That's low.
You know, and even more than that, middle of winter, probably double that number. We do about at the high school, I believe it's about 195 a year is what we do in
So this is
electricity.
taking, like, say, if it's too cold, taking a heater out of the class?
Well, we wouldn't start with those things. There would be a way to do those. This would be, you go into a classroom and you've got all these crazy lighting arrangements that have made their way in. You drive by the school district in the middle of the night, they're still on, you know? It's assessing those things, having refrigerators. Are those things really needed? Because they still take electricity. I have stayed away from this. This is not one I wanted to touch.
No, this was my,
I get reminded of it
I take
often.
responsibility, I put this out there, again, that's just, what I meant by personal appliances would be heaters, mini fridges, coffee pots, you know, just anything that takes electricity. It is-
Microwaves, fans.
Microwaves, fans.
Jerry Ellis used to be on a kick and would just take them out of classrooms
Yeah.
nightly.
So we've been much more, I think, easygoing about it, but I think when you think about electricity and stuff, so we're gonna start with safety items, and that would be lighting and different things. But I want the board's, you know, your opinions on this stuff before we go start doing this.
Well, I think you need to be cautious about, because I know I have a wife that works at high school, and at certain times of year, you have to have a fan because that room with the concrete.
Yeah,
wall
I
gets
totally
up to
get it.
100
I
degrees
get
in
it.
there.
Yeah, we can't mess with fans and
And-
heaters. I mean, it's not for just the teachers, it's for the kids. We have a lot of classrooms that kids are hot or cold.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, you're gonna have to be on a human basis. Is this
Yeah,
a
I
really
don't
necessary?
disagree. I don't
It just
disagree.
can't be, get rid of all, you know, having flashy lights, if they're LED, they're not using almost any energy, but if they're old light bulbs, they are.
Yeah. So the first thing we'll do is do an assessment of it, see what's there, and then, and move on from there. And I think what's happened the last couple of years that's kind of new is people have started to move in their own air conditioning units, which is, I never saw any of those before, so.
Any other questions?
Any concerns with any of this? Any?
I would not be a proponent for cutting the math curriculum, considering the state of our math scores.
Yeah, that's it.
So the process, Mike, they're piloting right now, correct? So this is an end of the year kind of a purchase, for the most part. We're already gonna do it in 2 parts.
Yeah, the original budget was supposed to be, hopefully, to be able to have, so to have the first part was going to be 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, because they actually have testing at the end of the year, and we're gonna try to do that in January, and then we would do it in the next budget for the K-1-2s. And so that was the plan, and that was just my plan, to make sure that we could get it all in a year, but they'd have to be 6 months apart because they're 2 different budgets.
When would those books be in the classrooms if we would have followed that?
Well, I'm gonna come to you next month with the results of the pilot, because I'm gonna stay on the pilot cycle, and then we'll have if it's completely off page, then I was hoping to have them here by 2nd semester. Because it doesn't take them long, once we work with the publisher, depending on which one it is, we can get them here fairly quickly. We can get the teachers their materials even faster.
And one of the things we talk about in the committee is, when deciding on what goes when, is, the timeline of it, so that we take that into account. And so when we're picking things, timeline is brought up.
So I will bring approximate numbers, because I don't know where we are. I purposely, I don't look at the numbers, and I don't look, we get the best curriculum. That's what we've always done. We've always made sure that what we're doing is the best for our community, with parents and staff, board members, to be on that committee to make those decisions. And so I feel very good about every time I bring something to you, it's been vetted and pushed every which way, and asked lots of questions. We even had it at Jamboree a couple weeks ago, so that's just part of the process, and so we want to make sure. So I'll bring you an approximate number, and I'll have it spread out in 2 shipments, just like I had planned. So that we'll make sure that as soon as we know which one it looks like, I'll get bids from both. That we have all of the results that come in, so we can see that next month.
Thank you.
I agree, Cindy, and if there's a way that we can start that this year, maybe we do 2 grades, or, and more, I won't be around.
We can do
Work
that.
on getting the budget for
And
next
then
year.
on the second half of the plan, you can cut deeper on that if we need to. But then things will come into greater clarity when we get into the spring.
Going through with not having a plan of what to do with that, and I know we've been really good, but I can remember years and
We went a long
decades where we
time
were terrible.
without doing anything, just because the money wasn't there.
Get it in place, get a plan in place, even if we're not here to see the whole thing through, then at least the ball's rolling.
Yes.
Well, I think this is the reflection of, we have done some things with curriculum, but that was primarily because of COVID ESSER money that it was available. Without that, we would not have been able to do what we've been able to do over the past several years. I mean, that's just a
No,
fact.
absolutely.
And so now we're looking at the first year where those dollars are now exhausted, and we're looking at district resources to try to fund these, and we see immediately that it's challenging.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Thank you for waiting so long, by the way. Approval of Cameron Ski for student board representative.
She's probably changed her mind now.
Yeah, doesn't this look like fun?
Yes, it is every day.
Do you want me to?
Sure, if you
put
want
this
to give
whole process?
the high points.
We got together a small little interview committee, and Kayla, myself, I had Mary Ann, and then Zoe Rose, teacher from high school, and we put her through a horrible interview. But she did really, really well, and it was 100% of the interview committee thinks that she would be a wonderful student rep.
There's a little
for our board.
education in her family.
A little bit. Despite the family, she did really well. But, no, I would propose that we approve Cameron to be our new junior student rep for our school board.
Questions, comments?
And then you would be sworn in next meeting, I believe, so.
That being the case, I'll ask for a motion to approve Cameron Ski for student board representative.
So moved.
Have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Let the record reflect we have one absent board member, so, yeah.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations, and my condolences. Approval of athletics overnight games, Scott?
Good evening. So as we are wrapping up the fall season, we know that there are possibility throughout the year that we might have kids that qualify or teams that qualify for state. For the, usually in October is when we ask for the board to just give a blanket approval, and then when we have specifics, we would go through the rest of the documentation and make that happen. Just looking ahead, we have the district cross-country meet is going to be coming up this Saturday. All of our runners have shown improvement throughout the season, but our best candidate is about a minute and a half from having a PR from being in the hunt. So probably not this year for cross-country, and the other sport that is still alive that could, if they had got hot at the right time, would be volleyball. But we have, looking ahead, wrestling, both basketball teams, and then in the spring, we'll see. So certainly, if the board approves, you will get more information as we have specifics that qualify.
This is a regular yearly thing.
Yep.
Questions?
Nope, nope, read every year.
Okay, then I'll ask for a motion to approve the athletics overnight games pre-list.
So moved.
I have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You bet. Approval of Sultan Middle School boys soccer program.
So there started to be conversation a little over a month ago. Kim, our new assistant principal, had been seeing that there's a group of kids that just seem to be lost. And well, we have not had boys soccer, and it's been something that could
Ever?
at the middle school.
Ever?
At the middle school, no. And so there's always been interest. I've had kids ask me for years, can we play boys soccer? Well, not until we get to the high school. Kim had wanted to start the conversations, what would it look like? Are there anybody? Because we certainly know that we would need to find schools to play. And then if we could find schools to play, could we put together a team? And the Snow King Middle School League, which is a lot of the Wesco high schools, those are the middle school level, they do have boys soccer going on during the second sports season that starts next week and goes through December. And found out that their format is they have boys soccer and girls soccer, they have one team each, and they have those teams play the same day against the same opponent. And they have, you can have a 10-game season in soccer, they have 8 games scheduled, and they had a number of schools that had byes. For our girls soccer, which happens during the same season, is in another middle school league, and so I reached out to see if any of the schools would be interested in, on their bye date, playing our boys team, if we put one together. And there were both schools from Monroe and one school from the Edmonds School District have initially responded saying, we'd love to play it. Edmonds wants us to travel to them. Monroe said, we're not that far, we could come to you. One of those it works out, one of them it doesn't because our girls are playing the same night. So we've got 3 potential opponents right now. We also know that if it doesn't happen, we also know that there's been discussions about concerns about additional transportation costs. We have 33 kids signed up, ready to want to play. So if we had that many kids, there's only one team, so 33 kids, 11 on the field, there'd be a limited amount of playing opportunities, but it'd be something that we could build upon and get them involved. There are a couple of coaches that are interested, and we're going through the hiring process right now. And we also have the potential to use high poverty LAP money to get some uniforms and additional equipment. That projection would be about $4,000 coming out of the middle school budget, not ASB, but the middle school building budget. And if we hired the coaches, the range of salaries, depending on the experience, would be somewhere between about $4,500 between the 2 stipends and about $6,500 at the high end.
How does this impact our Title IX? Do we have girls?
I've had that conversation. Right now, when you look at our percentage of last year, our the participation numbers, how many kids we have at the middle school, boys versus girls, participation, boys versus girls, our percentage is pretty close. We have more boys. We have about, last year we had about 50 more boys in the hallways than we had girls.
Okay.
We had about 16 more boys playing sports than girls sports across the board. If we took a look at the current kids that would be playing, there's a significant amount of kids that signed up for boys soccer and are not interested at this point in time in playing anything else. So those kids, this would be a thing that they could do. There would be some kids that right now are signed up for basketball, boys basketball during that same season, that would play soccer. So some of those kids would just shift, but they planned on playing a sport already. So, but I do have that concern.
I think we have the same number, if you have a boys soccer, we'd have to add a girls something.
Yes, and I agree with that, and that's part of the conversations we've been having. But one thing to look at would be, do we have enough kids that perhaps in the fall, there are middle schools that have softball offered?
Right.
And could we field enough girls that are interested in softball to put together a softball team?
Right.
It might take some kids away from volleyball that might be playing that right now, and maybe a couple of cross-country kids, but that is the one other.
I think it's necessary.
That's a female sport that I think we could look at being comparable. Obviously, we've missed that window this year.
Right.
And if the concern is about that balance, we know that we can continue this work and pull the plug this year, but move next year.
I just don't want to be, breaking that.
No, and I don't either. And that's why almost every conversation that I'm having with Brett and Kim, I bring that up again.
Okay.
To say, hey, we have to be mindful of the ramifications. We want, and if it means building. The other concern though, when we're asking, we already know we're trying to cut, and now we're looking to add. That I know is a big ask.
It is. Questions?
Not so much a question, but just a comment. Like you were saying, I think there's a pretty good sized group of boys, and I've coached a bunch of them, that's all they do. And I think it's important that they have a spot to do just, if we can find that balance between boys and girls sports, I think, boy, that group of soccer, boys soccer it's a good group of kids. And, by high school, they might lose interest because
they didn't have
they went another path, so I think it's important that they have that.
And that high school group of boys, struggles academically to maintain their academic eligibility, if that group is trying to learn how to navigate at the middle school level, it's possible that we might get into consistent study habits and being successful in the classroom that carries with them.
No, if I sounded like I was opposed to this, I'm not. I just know that Title IX says we have to have the same number of programs, and so if we approve this, it means we are, in essence, approving something else, be it softball or, I don't know what other sports are available that we could utilize, but.
Tennis could be something, but we don't have enough tennis courts to really offer that. We have the swimming pool on top of the middle school that we could maybe, have
I think we got
middle school swim
team.
team.
Did we drain that?
Oh, did we drain it?
We
No.
filled it in with
We're
gravel
working-
like
The
VOA
heating
did and made it
cost.
a parking lot.
The heating cost, right? The other piece is working out facilities, knowing that during this season, the weather isn't awesome. And so we would probably work to balance with the girls' soccer team, utilizing the stadium. Probably some days split the field in half, but knowing when we had the full, in order to practice strategy on the entire field, we'd probably alternate. And I would work with Renee to see if, because Byron right now, some of the youth soccer is probably not going to be using Osprey Park. Those seasons are winding down, correct?
Yep.
So Osprey Park might be an option for a period of time, but it does get dark. We do have the lights at the middle school field to balance that, but it gets a little mucky there.
I noticed that the budget source is Seoul Municipal High Poverty Lab. Could those same type funds be used for this potential softball?
I think that it's a possibility, yes.
So the funds for them aren't coming out of general fund, that's,
Transportation stuff would be.
Transportation and salaries.
coaching stipends $47,000 to $6,000, and we don't have a good real idea about transportation, I would assume.
So, one of the things that wasn't on the agenda tonight, but our person that does the training has been out, not coming back until December at the earliest. So we're contracting with the driver trainer in Monroe, and there's a few people that are lined up to be trained, and that will alleviate a lot of the pressure if we can get them all squared away. But it's, it's just kind of this, it's a difficult situation because it changes almost week to week,
On any given day, as long as all of our drivers are healthy, I believe that I can send 2 athletic trips out on a given day. And so I've already identified the days that we presently have girls soccer and boys basketball that might be going on the same day. And those would be dates we can't play an away boys soccer game. And in all likelihood, we might, half of the season might be inter-squad games at home.
Right.
Less cost.
Well, that's what they're doing right
officials.
now. I would imagine they're playing amongst themselves.
With more structure though.
Right.
Yes.
Other questions?
Well, I think, it's probably a really good thing if we're gonna be adding stuff, to add it at the middle school, because that's where we seem to be losing interest in kids. They get in a lot more trouble at that grade level, and behavioral issues, and the more incentive we're giving these kids to stay engaged in school, the better off they're gonna be by the time they get to high school.
The excitement is high.
boys soccer, the middle school is something that I've thought about on and off for a long time.
I didn't. Having girls go through, I didn't really realize we didn't have this. We had a pretty good girls middle
That's
school.
where it started.
Yeah.
Shannon Audison.
Yeah. I'll ask for a motion to approve. See where we go with this. I have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Guess we're spending money we don't have, Scott.
Story of my life.
Make it count.
Thank you very much.
And if you could get back to us on how we meet Title IX.
Yes.
I think that's, my yay was, and we have to figure that out.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Next up, notice of Assistant Superintendent travel to Calo.
Paul?
Halo.
I was gonna say Cabo,
Cabo.
like Cabo.
Right.
From Mexico.
Calo, Calo. This is, Missouri, I know what this is.
All right, so this is a school last year. We were set to go, I think it was in June last year. So we purchased the ticket and had to cancel. It was, at that time, my father passed away, so we had to reschedule. So this is, we already paid for this, it's just using, just rescheduling it. So there's no additional, in fact, Michelle wanted me to say that we saved $48 on it because we went with a different airline this time. So, but everything had already been paid ahead of time.
So airline was paid previously?
Mhm. Yeah, and then we shifted the flight, so it saves $48, but saves me, I won't be sleeping. It's a nice, like a red-eye flight or something like that, but whatever, so.
Great fun.
Yeah.
Questions?
No.
Then I'll ask for a motion to approve Kalo travel for Mr. Douglas, Dr.
So
Douglas.
moved.
Have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
And you're welcome to come along.
I actually leave on Thursday for Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be back on the 1st.
There you go.
Miss out.
Yeah, I'm just visiting a student though.
Titus. I'm just gonna point out my airfare was a quarter of yours.
Discussion of flow analytics.
So the report is there. A couple parts to this. I didn't plan on doing an in-depth dive, but I wanted to invite you guys to say, I can get the flow analytics people here, but I did want to point out that this report is done. I think I've already sent it to you.
Yep.
If you go to page 21 of 26, and just, you have to, the pages aren't numbered, you have to look at it in your...
It's one with the three colored.
One with the three colored graphs, there's a high, medium, middle, and low. And typically, or not typically, but I think the way we're looking at this would be an enrollment that meets the middle over 10 years. And so, subject to change certainly, but if you look at the low, it doesn't show much growth at all over a 10-year period. The middle shows about moving from this year 2,069 students to 2,409 in 2032 and 33 as a target area. You can monitor kind of how you go, and they did a pretty in-depth look at the analytics and births and all kinds of stuff that they looked at.
And there one of the pages, it compares the number of live births to the kids that end up going to your school, and pretty a drop. But I didn't see them having necessarily a reason for that.
The one, your question, Russ, I think is on page 18.
That's probably about
Because when you look at the birth forecast and the kindergarten forecasts.
And so, because I didn't see a reason for it, I was curious whether they took that diminished percentage into their accounts of, and which one did they use it in, low, medium, or high? Because if that's our biggest drop is in kindergarten, I think we want to make certain, I don't think it's forever. I agree we're going to grow.
There was a few districts in our region, when you look at the kindergarten numbers, that had prior to the school year starting. Monroe was one, they had to get rid of a kindergarten class. The Lakewood School District got rid of a kindergarten class, and we did. And we did in Gold Bar, where it's been stable for as long as I can remember. But our overall enrollment in Gold Bar wasn't too far off. And so it was just that kindergarten cohort, just a missing class. So I think what I would just be regurgitating everything from this. So what I want to do is see, do you have any basic questions about it that I can try to answer or get answered? And I think what I would like to do is get one of them to speak to us, so we can ask them these in-depth questions and all the what-ifs that come up.
We should have done it 5 years ago so we know if they're accurate.
Yeah. Well, and again, I wouldn't have suggested using a report like this if we didn't pay for it with impact fees.
Right.
Because these things aren't free, and they do cost money.
I would just be very cautious for future
Yeah.
boards to me, probably the blue line looks maybe a little low, but I think to me the green line looked high. So as we're finding out, it's easier to guess a little low and have to figure out things in what we're doing right now. So just-
Yeah, and that's, I think that's the step this year that it's, you know, there's signs all around us. I think the signs that, you know, maybe pay a little more attention to, you talked about it in your dealership, you know, the sentiment about public schools hasn't been all positive. You know.
It's just in the economy to
The
a
economy.
big portion of people. Questions about the flow analytics memorandum? There's a lot to digest there, and I didn't do a deep dive. I did read through it so that I knew all that they looked at. And it would be great to have somebody come and maybe give us a 15 or 20 minute discussion of field access for Sultan High School.
So we kind of locked things down last meeting, and I'm thinking about that, you know, quite a bit. I've been talking to Dave about some solutions we can come up with. I don't feel great about not giving our community access.
Right.
At the same time, there's this responsibility to take care of the facilities, because ultimately everybody in this room is paying for that. But, so I wanna, you know, open it back up and talk to Dave about some things that we can do.
Technology?
Access control. So Dan, oh, go ahead.
Well, go ahead, I'll just let you go for it.
No, I was just gonna say, Dan came to me and said, could we come up with a way that keeps the field locked but gives access to those that need access between a certain time?
Yeah.
And we can, it's doable, and we can do it with a system that integrates into what we already have with the cyber locks.
Okay.
So that's kind of cool. And it's.
So it'd be a punch code.
Correct.
That would be widely accessible, everybody would know it. If you want to get in there from dusk to dawn, and Dave would program it, or dawn to dusk, it would be a
Dusk to
one
dawn would be dark.
Renee would program it, but.
however it would work.
Okay.
And then at the closure, the code would change, and people wouldn't have that one. So
Okay.
at dark, over the course of the evening, it would be dark.
And how long to implement, and how many dollars, and what budget does it come out?
So, this was a quick phone call with one vendor. Looks like it's about $1,500 to give us, wireless access control to the lock. And then one that uses our existing CyberKey system.
So when you
Per
talk about
gate.
CyberKey,
Per gate.
how does that, it's a push button though, or something?
It's a push button, but the Mortise lock itself is still our CyberKey, so you can still get in with the CyberKey.
So an employee with a cyber key could open it.
Absolutely,
They wouldn't have to have the code.
correct,
So you're saying that
Community
everybody
members
knows
would all know the
code?
code.
correct.
Okay.
General public, yeah.
There might be a way, I have a series of questions to ask the guy tomorrow. There might be a way to have an open time on the lock. And if that's the case, then we don't need the code.
Right. Okay. And what budget does that come out of?
Dan says he's got it covered.
Yeah. You gotta
What's to
start
stop
charging
some-
for the football game announcing and the excitement that it builds, and people pay to listen to that.
What's to stop somebody from getting in and then not leaving when it locks? That's,
I think we face that right now.
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to go hide, I mean, I don't,
You can climb that fence.
Well, they can, I was gonna say, I can.
yeah,
I'm
there's,
old, I
even
can
though
get
the
over
door, the
fence.
gates are open, people still climb the fence,
Yeah.
you know, from what I'm told.
And I would assume that that area where that access is gonna have camera, so.
Yeah, we would have to add a close-up camera to that.
Because we need to know,
Just so we
'cause
see
if it gets messed up, at least we know that.
So right now, we
who
have,
went in the right way.
right now, we have a Saturday employee that works Saturdays and opens it when he gets there, closes it when he leaves.
So it's only closed Sundays.
It's closed Sundays. The challenge is there's not really good field in town, or, you know, there just isn't anything,
No.
you know?
And you said it earlier, we're all paying for it, so as
Yeah.
much as we can, it'd be good to get.
But it gets to a point where you gotta shut it down for a while and say, hey, come on, you guys. This is all of our investment. It only stays as good as we all care for it.
Well,
Wanna give you access.
Bringing animals on the field that are
That's terrible.
defecating on
It's
the field
terrible.
is not, that's not what it's for, and that's not utilizing it, protecting the investment that our communities put in. Do we have a sign that says no pets?
We do.
Yes. I made it many, many, many years ago.
You made the sign.
I made a lot of the signs around the district.
Maybe we need a pink one that says no pets.
I can do that.
Don't
Really
encourage
bright.
her.
I have glittery hot
I'm
pants.
just
Don't
joking.
go.
Seem to listen.
Yeah.
I'm in the court of public shaming too. When something bad happens like that,
Oh,
a
yeah.
dog does something on the track, let's take a picture of it, post the date and time.
I love it.
You know, public shaming.
So Dave, let's figure out a timeline and what this might need to look like, and we'll figure it out.
Awesome. Yeah. Love you guys, but I'm leaving.
Yeah, I can't blame you.
Hasta la vista.
Thank you.
Discussion of kindness week. That was this. As Gigi rightfully pointed out, we can't approve this tonight because it wasn't on the agenda, but it looks like a good thing. Get it on the next agenda unless anybody has an objection to kindness.
Can we still just have a kindness week without a
We
resolution?
can, I can go
absolutely.
back out and say, hey.
We encourage everybody every week to be kindness week. This one can be
Right.
even more special.
I think the world just needs more kindness in general.
I think you mentioned that.
Dan, can't you just send out, this is gonna be kindness week?
It's gonna be
without us?
kindness week,
Yeah.
and November 13th is kindness day.
Let's be more kind than any of the schools that have already.
So come to the school board meeting on Monday,
say,
November
isn't that our
13th, and be kind to your local school board director.
Usually people are. Usually they
I
are.
know.
Okay, first read of policy 1250, students on governing boards. Questions? It is the first reading, I had no questions. And I'll ask for a motion to approve first reading of policy 1250 if there's no further question or discussion.
So moved.
We have, I'm gonna give that one to Gigi, I think she just, so we have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
You're welcome.
First read of policy 1400, meeting conduct, order of business, and quorum. Questions? Thank you for having a clean copy on some of these. It's a lot easier to read than redacted.
I think there was just one highlighted part that was asking how far in advance we would want public input, and so I thought the 24 hours was highlighted.
Yeah. Questions? First reading, I'll ask for a motion then to approve first reading of policy 1400, meeting conduct, order of business, and quorum.
So moved.
Have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
First read of policy 5201, drug-free schools, community, and workplace. Questions?
Nope.
Nope.
Well, these first readings are easy this time.
Pretty obvious.
Pretty
Yes.
straightforward.
That being the case, I'll ask for a motion for approval of first reading policy 5201, drug-free schools, community, and workplace.
So moved.
Have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Superintendent's report, do you have anything, Dan?
I do. Let me get it open here. Oh, I'm not seeing it. Oh, there it is. So the Sky Valley Transportation is currently on schedule. Substantial completion is for December the 20th for move-in. Charlie informed me today that there's going to be some budget reductions, not significant, but some budget reductions where we won't have to put in some hydro seed or some sprinklers, where I think if you think of the road that goes between the cemetery and the facility, we're gonna have gravel that the city's gonna purchase to put in right next to the fence to increase the parking for the, so that'll be a budget reduction, a small one. So I think we're about within budget 40,000 as of today, so. Doing great. If you haven't been by there, I encourage you to go by. Everybody, it's looking fantastic.
I'll call Lee. I really haven't got to go down and check it out. I do want to do that.
Playground equipment update. So the piece of equipment is mostly in the ground. There's a weather-dependent part that we're waiting on, and that hopefully will come at the end of this week. There's a pour-in rubber. I think it's a, I'm trying to envision what it is, but it's a stable rubber flooring that has got to be dry for above 50 degrees and dry, and then I just heard today it's going to get cold.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that all works, but it's looking like it's under construction because we're not quite done, but it's getting closer. Wamoa legislative visit update. We had several folks from Wamoa. We had Representative Carolyn Eslick here from Sultan, the 39th District. We had a architect, some various business officials from a construction company, and all school construction-related people. And we toured this school and Sultan High School. And I think it went pretty well, and Gigi was there as a board representative, and I thought, you know, some of those numbers that I gave you came from the OSPI guy. And a representative from OSPI was here, and, you know, I just told him how, you know, basically how, and they know how inadequate the funding model is.
And he's never seen a school that has porta potties before. And he took pictures of it
Yeah,
to
that's
show,
so-
put in his
Go back and
slideshow.
take it to the big wigs,
Mhm.
and hopefully they can do something about it.
Yeah. It's almost, it's an embarrassment to
I
have.
was gonna say, yeah, that's not.
Anything else?
And PLC training for the school board, I knew I put it in here, I just get my way
The
around.
30th
I
of
forgot.
October?
It's on the 30th of October. You can enter either the 2 PM session or the 4 PM session. There's two of them. And I will send you the Zoom links to that.
Monday? Monday, I think.
Yeah, and then executive session for item number 5, 15 minutes. If you hit the executive session button, I'll write it in bold in the future. You can't
Okay.
really see it.
That be the case, how long will we need that for?
15 minutes.
15 minutes, so I'll ask for an adjournment. It is now 9:24. We'll adjourn until 9:30. If anybody needs to use the restroom, get all of this equipment out of the room, and then we will be done at 9:45. Is that
Yep.
fine?
Yep.
I'll ask for a motion to adjourn from our regular session to the delayed executive session at 9:30.
So moved.
Have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, and welcome aboard for having an involved student.